and welcome to the Texas Talks podcast. I'm your host, Brad Swail. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming to the show Representative Donna Howard of House District 48. She has served in the Texas House of Representatives since 2006. She is currently serving as the Vice Chair of the Higher Education Committee, as well as the Vice Chair of Article 2 and Appropriations, as well as the Chairwoman of the Texas Women's Health Caucus, which is the largest caucus in the country focused solely on advancing women's health policy. Representative Donna Howard, it's so great to meet you.
Thank you. Welcome for being here with you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you are actually my representative.
Oh, awesome to know.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Well, we'll do that off camera.
Okay.
No, it's really wonderful to speak with you. I think that you are the first. I'm born and raised in Austin.
Same here.
Well, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Already finding things in common.
I think that you are the first Austin representative, like solely Austin representative that I've spoken to. So I'm excited to speak with you.
Thank you.
And just the fact that you've been in the Texas House since 2006, I think that there's some wisdom that you probably have about the whole process and how everything works. And
I would hope.
Oh, definitely, for sure. So I gave a pretty brief description there. Would you like to add any personal or district background?
Well, I guess I would just add, as we've just said, I'm a lifelong Austin resident. I have lived here my entire life, raised my family here, went to the University of Texas, got a bachelor's in nursing and a master's in health education, worked as a critical care nurse, as an instructor in health education at UT, raised my kids, served on a local school board. Wasn't really planning to run for anything else. Eventually did run for the legislature in a special election in 2005 is when it started, and elected at the beginning of 2006, and have been fortunate to have my constituents send me back here since then.
Yeah.
And it's been a real opportunity to do things that I think make a difference in my community.
Yeah.
And it's just a privilege and an honor.
Yeah. I'm wondering, so it's been almost 2 decades.
Yes.
What have you learned from being a rep for 2 decades?
I hope I've learned a lot. I
know you have.
I know where the skeletons are in the closet, kind of thing. As a former board member of Common Cause and someone who, when I was at UT as a freshman and in my formative years as a young person, got involved with Common Cause at that time too. I've always been interested in good government, responsible government. And so being here as long as I've been here, hopefully I have gained some institutional knowledge that is helpful in meeting the needs of my constituents and the entire state, hopefully. I also recognize that there are times to move on and let new ideas, younger people, come in and take over.
Sure.
So it's kind of been, for me, a balance of those two things. So many things have been happening in the legislature over the past 2 decades that I have found myself in a position to say, well, there's some more that needs to be done here, and we need some people who know what's going on at this place.
Yeah.
We know somebody who knows appropriations, for one thing, because let's face it, if it's not in the budget, you can pass a bill, but if it's not funded, it's not going to happen.
Sure.
So it's been a really unique opportunity to work on things that I care about, that my constituents care about. And for the time being, I feel like I do have value to offer in terms of that institutional knowledge.
Yeah. And I mean, just speaking of constituents, you serving them for so long, which is congratulations, by the way. That's an honor for sure. How do you think that they have their viewpoints changed? How has the constituency changed over that time? I remember Austin in 2006, and it feels a little different nowadays.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Traffic's still bad.
Traffic is bad, yes. We don't have the Armadillo World headquarters anymore.
No, and the Capital Metro got rid of the Dillo.
Oh, I know. I loved that. Oh, my gosh. We've grown numbers-wise. We have, as you are aware, housing affordability issues, traffic issues. Those have only gotten more severe.
Yeah.
In terms of my constituents themselves, I got elected in a real bipartisan fashion.
Mm-hmm.
When I served on the Eanes School Board, it's a nonpartisan board, but we knew our affiliations. I was the only Democrat on the board, but we learned right away that we shared common values, common goals, and they became some of my best friends.
Yeah,
we learned how to work together on things, and I've served over the years on different community boards, my church board, preschool boards, those kinds of things, and so I made a lot of connections that crossed party lines.
Yeah.
And so when I was elected in a special election, I think it was a strong showing of the fact that I can be representative of a wide cross-section within my constituencies. And I believe that whatever changes have occurred, we still have some common values and common goals.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful district to represent. I mean, there have been some changes with redistricting over the years of where the exact lines are, but we value public education, higher education, a workforce pipeline, and we value access to health care.
Yeah,
those things have not changed.
Yeah, those things. Everyone wants those things to be great,
yes.
For sure, 100%. And some of those things, including housing, schools, school funding, stuff like that, some of that was tackled in the 89th Texas Leg.
Right.
I know there's about to be a special session on July 21st, which is my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Well, it really Governor Abbott beat you to it by scheduling it.
So
on
this
my
was
birthday.
A present for you.
He wrote me a letter. Said, "I'm happy to do this for you," and I said, "You didn't even wrap it. What is this?" So. I want to start with the Texas Leg, the regular session, the 89th. What were your general thoughts about the 89th Texas Legislature?
It was a much different body coming into it, having lost, I think it was 16 Republicans that did not come back as a result of the voucher vote, primarily. And that shifted to a certain extent, the makeup of the body. The ones who did not come back, by and large, were, for lack of a better term, I would call moderate Republicans, although that's really not exactly true because they were very conservative.
Yeah.
But they were willing to work across the aisle to work on common ground solutions. And the group that came in, at least initially, I think came in with kind of the mindset that there had to be some house cleaning and some changes made, and it became more strident. I think I can say this for many of them, that over the course of working together this session, though, there was more of an understanding that we do share a lot of things, and that we can work together, and that the so-called other side is not evil.
Yeah.
But the session was different for sure. And, we always say, oh, that's the worst session ever. But this particular session, to me, felt, the word that I've been using is brutal.
Yeah.
It was intensive. We had more late night, overnight type sessions, hearings than I had ever experienced before. We were tired and worn out. So that was challenging. We did get some good things passed, I believe. I think there were some hurtful things that were done, a lot of hurtful rhetoric, some unsustainable things done with our budget, not realistically looking forward. So my labeling of this session is the good, the bad, and the unsustainable.
There we go. So what is tell me about that. Tell me, I mean, obviously I would think that in most Texans' minds, whether you agree with it or not, the banner legislation was the school vouchers, the education savings accounts. I mean, that's going to be probably what people think of when they think of the 89th Texas Leg. I want to know your thoughts on that, but what is the good, the bad, and the unsustainable, especially the unsustainable? I don't think people hear about that a lot. Maybe their representative passes something they're really excited about, but they don't realize, oh, there's no funding for it, or it's just a temporary thing, or whatever.
Right.
So let's start with the
unsustainable.
Unsustainable. Sure, let's start there.
Okay. Well, first off, politicians, elected officials, we all tend to use certain rhetoric sometimes to get a point across that's maybe more simplified than it should be.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. People don't have the time and bandwidth to be listening to all the in-depth background on what we're talking about here. They've got their lives to lead.
Yeah. And you've read the bills before. You know how difficult it can be to read. You have experience. But,
yes.
Yeah.
But the thing, like the one I'm thinking about in particular is when we talk about a budget surplus.
Yeah.
And both sides do this.
Mm-hmm.
Session before last, it was a $33 billion surplus. This session, it was a $24 billion surplus. It's not really a surplus in terms of a pot of money sitting there.
Yeah.
That's extra money. It's how you do your accounting. It's what your cash balance is at the end of the session.
Okay.
And that includes several things. So in this case, it included about, I don't remember the exact number, but about $8 billion of dedicated funds, constitutionally dedicated funds. These are funds that we have determined can only be used for one purpose and one purpose only. But we haven't appropriated them for that purpose.
Okay.
So that's money sitting there that allows us to say we're balancing our budget, but we can't use those funds for anything but that one purpose.
Okay.
So it's not really there to be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's just for that. But what purpose was it? Are you getting there? Am I jumping the gun?
No, there's a lot of purposes.
Okay.
I mean, there's loads of these.
I see what you mean. Okay.
That they're still sitting there and they're not available for paying for schools or roads or healthcare or whatever we want to spend it for.
Sure.
So it's not really a surplus in that sense. We also had $6 or $7 billion that we used the last of the federal COVID dollars to actually pay for payroll for the Department of Justice and the criminal justice system. Okay, well, that may have been surplus then because we used other dollars and supplanted our state dollars, but we now have to pay for that. Yeah. That's not extra money that's just going to be sitting around. We've got to consider that we now have to pay for that with state money. Yeah. And there's a variety of the $4.5 billion that we were supposed to be putting into schools last time that the governor held hostage to vouchers that never got spent. Mm-hmm. That's a part of the so-called surplus too. So I guess my point here is that when we use those terms and when people hear that surplus, they think, well, you've got a bunch of extra money sitting around to do something with. Well, what tends to come to the forefront is property tax cuts. Yeah. And that's great. I'm a property tax owner. I love having property tax cuts. Yeah. We have to keep paying for them, though. Like right now, the amount we are continuing to have to pay for every year, based on what we've done the past couple of sessions, is $51 billion. $51 billion in property tax swaps that we've made using state dollars instead of local property tax dollars. You can't keep doing that. Sure. And make that work. Yeah. So things like that is when I say unsustainable. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned, when I talked about Austin, your district, the unaffordability of it and the housing part of it. And I think part of that is property taxes. And a lot of people look to the state for a solution. Right. And, the state can't obviously do things. I know that a few sessions ago, they changed the revenue cap to 3.5%. Governor Abbott talked about in his State of the State address of requiring a 2/3 vote for any sort of, bond package or maybe even a tax increase. I can't remember, but that never really materialized. Maybe he's projecting what he's going to do way in the future. Who knows? What else could the state do for that? All of the swaps that you're talking about, $51 billion, paying down property taxes, local property taxes. That's obviously a local issue, I think. Well, certainly the state cannot get property taxes. We don't have a state property tax. Sure. So it is local in that sense, yes. Yeah. What the state does is controls how the locals can gather those taxes. So you mentioned the 3.5% limit there. It's also it's a 2.5% with our schools. Okay. Part of the problem people complain about is the appraisals. And feel like, appraisals are way too high. It's really not an acceptable way we're doing appraisals. But quite frankly, by and large, appraisals are based on market value. And in a free market system, that seems to be what I think we would want is a realistic appraisal. But the problem is when you have people who have purchased a home on a fixed income and by no fault of their own, it increases in value significantly. And then all of a sudden, they're paying property taxes way above their means.
Yeah.
And that's really a challenge. Now, right now, the current market, we're seeing appraisals go down.
Yeah.
We're seeing value go down. So we might actually see a decrease in the appraised value and in the property taxes as a result of what's going on in the market right now. That remains to be seen. Point being, though, where I want to go with this, I think, is we determine if we want government to provide services, if we want roads, if we want healthcare and education, if we want clean water, what it is that we want and what government should provide. And then we figure out how can we equitably and fairly pay for that.
Yeah.
Well, Texans have made the decision multiple times to not have an income tax. So that's off the table.
Yeah.
All that's left really that's a large source of revenue is property taxes, which the state can't levy. So we have a system that we get some from the locals to help us pay for public education and sales taxes. But we're already at one of the highest rates of sales tax in the nation.
Yeah.
So if we want to get rid of property taxes, we're going to have to find, I think what we had this last session was $80 billion came from property taxes. Where are we going to get that? Or are we going to cut $80 billion out of our budget?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that we have the room to do that.
Sure.
I don't think we're paying enough for some things as we should be.
Yeah.
But again, part of the challenge is here, how do we do this in a way that is fair, that doesn't overburden any one segment of our population? And so that's the challenge I think we have is how, and this session, I think one of the things that we did which was positive, was also to do to reduce the taxes on the personal property inventory for businesses. Because if you just reduce the homestead exemptions for residents, then homeowners and residents, then you're not helping businesses.
Yeah.
The compression that we have has helped businesses. So we've got to have a balance of things. And I'm not a tax expert, but this is part of what we talk about every single session with our budget. And how do we do this in a way that is fair, that allows us to provide the services that Texans expect us to provide? And how do we be accountable?
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about the school savings accounts, the vouchers, and also school funding. I know that I believe it was HB 3 was the school funding bill. I think it was $8 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, there's a real political divide about the school vouchers,
right?
And you know, both happened. There was school funding, but also school vouchers. I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are. Is there? It's passed. It's done. Could it be better? Should it be scrapped? Is it a wait and see? How do you feel? Let it loose.
Such
Let
a
it
big
loose.
question. Yeah, okay. Well, we go back to my being here a long time.
Yeah.
Having been on a school board when the Robin Hood system had got put in place and dealing with it back then in the 90s. You know, in 2011, when we had a huge budget shortfall and the legislature cut school funding by $5.5 billion. Okay. That is, we've been building back up since then. Okay. Where I'm going with this is, I believe that part of the challenge has been that we haven't adequately funded our schools, and then we blame them for not doing everything that they need to be doing.
Yeah.
The district that I was honored to serve on the school board was Eanes, in the Westlake area.
Yeah.
Excellent schools with excellent outcomes.
Yeah.
As any parent, I want to do everything, and I did at the time, and I know the parents now want to do any and everything they can to help their students, their children survive and do well.
Yeah.
They are able, because it's a more affluent district, to support a foundation. It's wonderful. It provides all kinds of exceptional things for that district. The district has about 7,800 students.
When you say a foundation, you're not talking about a foundation like the parents are setting an educational foundation with preschool. You may be talking about that, but also it's the Eanes Education Foundation.
That's it. The Eanes Education Foundation.
A nonprofit that
that helps fund things at the school, that they contribute to the schools. So in a school district of about 7,800 students, at least last I checked, they were able to pay for an additional, I believe, 77 teachers.
Yeah.
To be able to have smaller class sizes. To be able to have programs, robotics, and all kinds of things that they might not have had otherwise. Again, I absolutely support that effort.
Sure.
My point here is that money does matter. You have to have a certain amount of money to keep your classroom small.
Yeah.
To pay your teachers, to give them the resources they need so that they feel supported and can give your students what they need to provide. We don't have that opportunity in many of our school districts.
Yeah.
They don't have parents that can afford to do a foundation and are dependent upon what the state provides. And the state provides an equitable amount to Eanes, just like it does to any lower income school. They get basically the same amount per pupil, weighted for different specialties. So again, my contention would be that when people complain about our schools and our students not doing as well as they should be doing, I would suggest that if we funded them all at the level that we're funding Eanes, that we might see better outcomes, because students who do not have those resources, absolutely have more challenges to be able to get the tutoring they need, to have enrichment programs, all the kinds of things that, people like me have taken for granted.
Sure.
So I think that the vouchers, I'm getting to your question eventually, I think that the vouchers were a solution in search of a problem.
Okay.
And the wrong solution.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that if we invested more in our schools, that we would see better outcomes. I think some of the things we did this session are in the right direction, making sure that we're looking at students pre-K up to third grade and how they're doing with their reading. We haven't been doing that.
Yeah.
And we know the studies show us that if you're not reading by third grade, if you're not in the third grade level of reading when you're in third grade, then you're going to have challenges the rest of your educational course.
Yeah.
So I think that there are things that we know to do that could help improve how our students are doing. Having teachers get the training that they need and the support that they need, residencies, if you will, for teachers, whatever. There's all kinds of things out there that we could be doing. Vouchers, at least the way that I'm perceiving it, are more about paying for students who are already in private school primarily. Mm-hmm. We have options for students in failing schools. We have transfer situations that can be taken advantage of. We have magnet schools. We have charter schools, which are public schools. To me, this is taking money away from what could be going into our public schools to help them thrive.
Yeah.
And instead, providing a supplement, a handout, if you will, mm-hmm. to those who are already paying for private school, who can afford to do that. And I will, one final thing I'll say about Eanes. One of the reasons that Eanes is so successful, I think, is because Eanes competes with private schools. Eanes has to compete with private schools because those parents have the resources to take their kids wherever they want to take them. Yeah. And they've chosen Eanes because it does as good as, if not better than, private schools. It is like a private school in a public setting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just my children go to Eanes and...
I hope I'm saying it the way you are experiencing it then.
Well, trust me. Let me say. So, my youngest is about to go there for kindergarten, but the two older ones are still in elementary there. My middle son has special needs, and I've said this on the show before, so not breaking news to the listeners, but to you. And so I think that he would be eligible pretty early for the school vouchers. But Eanes, the school, is doing such an awesome job. I get emotional thinking about it. Yeah. And I have no interest in using one. Yeah. So there are certainly situations where, it's doing fantastic, and this is great, literally across the street. So why change it? But there's also the class sizes and everything like that for the students that are in schools that aren't doing well right now. There's several in Austin.
Yes,
I'm sure you've
yes.
heard the news. Giving them an opportunity to go to a school that's serving better and reduce. I mean, that would reduce the class sizes. I think if they leave that school, there would be smaller class sizes in the public school that they left, just by numbers. I don't know. But
there might be fewer teachers though too. So
that's
I don't
true.
know.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true. But I'm wondering, what do you say to parents that say, my kid is in the school and it's failing, and I want an option, but I can't afford it? Ian's parents have that option.
Right.
Many times. I don't, but many times they do. And what's the message to them? I don't know. I hope that it works because I want education to work. I don't care if it's funding. I don't care if it's school vouchers, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I just want it to work.
Right.
How do you feel about what do you say to those parents that say, I want an option?
Well, let me back up to special needs
Please.
students first.
Yeah.
The legislature created a commission that looked at the funding of our special needs population, session before last, and determined that, and it was a bipartisan commission, determined that we were funding to the tune of about $2 billion less than we needed to be. This session, we changed the funding mechanism to be in line with what the recommendation was out of that commission. But instead of putting in an additional $2 billion, we put in $800 million.
Okay.
Okay.
A little short.
A little short.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that one of the things, again, to get back to the funding thing, I know that money is not the answer to everything, but you've got to have enough money in the first place.
Yes.
And so I would suggest that, again, with our special needs populations, let's put our money where our mouths are here about this. We studied it. We saw what we needed, and then we didn't provide that amount. Yes, I understand that sometimes parents probably feel trapped in the situation that they're in. I also, though, have seen schools like Dobie, which is one of the underperforming schools, where the community has come together and said, we are trying our best to do what we can to save our school because we love our school. We want it to succeed. Help us to help it succeed.
Yeah.
I think there are ways we can intervene and help. The community schools approach is one of the ways that has actually made a difference. Just going to a different school, I understand that that's a very individualistic thing.
Sure.
And that it's easy for me to say.
Yeah.
But I think that there are other solutions that don't involve just going to a different school. Let's take care of the schools that we have and make sure they have the leadership they need, the teachers they need, the resources they need, so that school is one that can be as successful as an Eanes school.
Yeah. I hope that all schools are as successful as Eanes schools, for sure. So I want to talk about the special session. I also want to be respectful of your time. So on the special session, last time in the 88th, there was like 6 special sessions, something like that. I just personally do special. I'm not a state representative. I've never worked in the Capitol. You can skip this question if you want.
Okay.
Do special sessions get annoying after a while?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I live in Austin.
There you go.
So I don't have to come back to Austin.
Yeah.
I'm already here.
Sure.
Okay. So in that sense, it's a little different for me.
Yeah.
However, it is absolutely an extreme situation in terms of the rest of my life, just like it is for any other state rep.
Sure.
When you are a part-time legislature, oftentimes you have another job.
Yeah.
Certainly have family and other commitments, and you are expecting to be here only X number of days, 140 days every other year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're here, seems like year-round nowadays.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge for me, though, really is that as a member of the minority party, which I have been the entire time that I've been at the legislature.
It just makes you stronger.
Well, it doesn't kill you, right?
Yes, true. Well, it makes on a personal level, it makes you stronger.
Okay, I'll take that. But what it also does is means that special sessions are very different than regular sessions. only the governor can call a special session.
Yeah.
The only things we can consider are on the agenda determined by the governor.
Yeah.
We cannot do anything about anything else. So any negotiating and leveraging that we might do during a regular session when there's so many bills filed and we have a lot of things we're working on.
Yeah.
Okay, I can give a little here if you'll give a little here,
Sure.
whatever the negotiations are. There's no room for that really in a special because you're very limited in the bills that you're going to be able to hear.
Yeah.
And you just do not have enough other bills to negotiate with.
Yeah.
So as a minority party member,
Yeah.
typically special sessions become where I get rolled over. So it's more a matter of I'm concerned about special sessions because some of the negative, in my opinion, legislation that we were able to prevent from passing in the regular session has more of a potential to pass in a special.
Well, I think in this special session, the 89th legislation special session,
the very special
banner, the banner legislation there is going to be SB3. I think
so. At least at this point in time, we don't know, but
sure,
yes, and absolutely, I'm a proponent of regulation over banning.
Yeah,
and I think that's what the majority of Texans want.
And I think this is correct me if I'm wrong. You're in it way more than I am, obviously, but I feel like that's a bill that probably Democrats could shine on.
Oh, I mean, certainly, I think that's a real bipartisan effort, and I'm glad that's coming back. That should we do need to address that and save thousands and thousands of Texas jobs.
Yeah,
keep grandmas like me out of jail. Not to say that I use, but
you never know. You could if you wanted
to. If I wanted to,
sure.
And to prevent people from relying on addictive and very dangerous opioids.
Yeah.
Our veterans who have found so much relief in these products.
Yeah.
There's just, regulating it just like we regulate alcohol, with not selling to minors, with regulating the packaging. Those kinds of things make common sense, I think, to most Texans.
Yeah.
And so I believe that is the route we should take, and I'm hopeful that that's what will come out of this special session.
Yeah, I think that that seems to be the way that it's going, but we'll see. I think that I was surprised at the bipartisan uproar against it on social media. Regular life didn't hear a lot about it, but certainly social media where people express their opinions very openly.
Really?
I think, they do quite a bit. So there's also on the special session, there's rumors about what might be put on there. I know that Senator Middleton, also candidate for Attorney General, has sent a letter to Governor Abbott requesting certain things like taxpayer-funded lobbying bans and other GOP priorities, stuff like that. But there's also I've seen online rumors of like redistricting and stuff like that, like mid-decade redistricting,
right.
which I think is rare.
Hopefully so.
And I'm wondering what your thoughts on that is, just as a legislator, as a representative who's been there for so long.
Well, you've heard the proverbial fox guarding the hen house.
Sure.
This is a case where the foxes get to draw the lines to get the hens that they want in their hen house.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might refer to it as cheating or virtually stuffing the ballot box. You figure out that, okay, I need to have X number of people that I think will vote for me in my district, so I'm going to draw out the line however I need to draw it to get those number of people in my district, rather than looking at what makes sense to voters.
Yeah.
Consistency makes sense to voters. Overlapping jurisdictions makes sense to voters. Dividing up Travis County, as was done with one of the redistrictings, where we had, 6 congressional representatives all coming out of Travis County you could stand on a street corner in, I think it was like around 34th and Guadalupe, I don't remember exactly where it was, and see almost every district around you. That's stacking the deck.
Yeah.
And I think what we're talking about here is a perception among some in the current administration at the federal level who believe that the margins are so close that we need to make sure we get more Republicans elected to Congress. Mm-hmm. And the only way to ensure that is to redraw the lines and try to make more districts that would be favorable to Republicans, which would mean taking some Republicans out of safe Republican districts and putting them in Republican voters and putting them in districts where they've elected a Democrat, hoping that they would flip to become Republican. You know, I think Texans like fair elections.
Yeah.
Fair and honest elections. Not having us restructure things so that we get the outcome we want. Politicians, elected officials determining where they get elected rather than constituents determining, voters determining who gets elected.
Yeah.
It's exactly the opposite of what should be done. So, yes, that's being talked about. I'm not going to be surprised at one bit if that's what comes up and gets put on the call at some point, because I think it's really close. We're right now, I don't know what's happened today, but with what's going on with the big, beautiful bill? Yeah, that one.
Yeah. I think they're still debating it.
Yeah.
So I think they're done reading it.
Yeah, they finished reading it earlier today. But the fact is that the reason this is going on like it is right now is because of how close it is.
Yeah.
The vote is so close that if the Republicans want assurance that they're going to be able to pass what they want without this kind of drama and potential for losing, then they've got to increase their numbers. And the only way they can significantly do that is by redistricting and drawing the lines to ensure they get more Republicans elected.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what this is all about.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Governor Abbott puts that on the special session and the other things as well. I do wish you the best of luck in the special session, and I hope that it's different from the regular session and you get not so many overnights.
I hope not.
You get to go home and hang out with your grandchildren, maybe. Yeah. So, Representative Donna Howard, I really appreciate you taking the time. It was really a pleasure to speak with you. Is there a social media or website or anything else that you like to plug? I know you're on X.
I am. I still call it Twitter.
You're still on Twitter. People still call it Twitter.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram. And I will plug the Texas Women's Health Caucus, which I'm a chair of, that you mentioned at the beginning. We have a Facebook site and a Twitter, X. And again,
call it Twitter. It's okay.
Okay. So, would love to have people join, be support. I hear from people who support, oppose, whatever, and I do learn a lot from what people say to me on there. So I think it's a valuable tool to have.
Yeah.
We'll
put the links down in the description below. And I apologize. I did want to talk about the Women's Health Caucus. I'm sorry we didn't get to it. I hope that you can come back and talk to me about it more.
Would love to. And also, as my constituent, let me know what you need.
I will let you know. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.